All right, so has Bitcoin made its way to 25K and retraced and is going to hold a new pattern? We're going to take a look at that along with some other altcoins and, kind of just the general Friday topic today. And we'll chart this with, I think, one of the guys that you guys like on the show. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Joining me today, of course, is Tim Warren. He's going to be coming in and talking about where Bitcoin is going and maybe some other tokens. So make sure and stick around for him. Before we get started, though, I want to get into our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding on crypto assets, this is one of the ways to do it through a crypto IRA. Very simple and easy. You can do a lot of trading over there. You basically pay on your active trades. You're in full control, but there's no monthly fee. That's the cool thing about iTrust. And the other aspect is that you can do a lot of things with not only tokens, but also gold, as well as silver in your IRA. Very easy to transfer or roll over. So make sure and check them out. They do a great job also on education. Lots happening right now with the deadline coming up here for being able to still get a tax credit for your IRA. So pay attention on that if you're getting ready to do your taxes. Check out our link below. It'll give you a $100 funding reward. All right, so I want to welcome in Tim Warren. He's been on our show before. Great to have you back, Tim.
Thank you, Paul, for having me. I'm super excited about today.
Yeah. So let's, first of all, kudos to you. On the last time you and I had a chance to get on the interview, you called the bottom on Solana. And we were looking at the chart and we were like, hey, this $8 is probably about where it's going to go. Likelihood is we're going to see some movement here. Sure enough, literally within days, we started to see the Solana. So congrats. We always got to give traders props when they hit one.
Hey,
anyway.
I'll take it. I'll take it because I know the audience knows I am not the biggest Solana supporter, but the chart looked good, and so I'll take any win I can get.
There you go, my man. There you go. Hey, listen, let's talk about Bitcoin. There's been a lot of speculation as to why Bitcoin ran to 25K. It has retraced a bit now, back down into the 24s and 23s. But when you look at where Bitcoin is going, some people looked at stablecoins, I should say, USDC primarily, as being one of the scenarios. Also, you had Mt. Gox creditors now receiving 90% payment in Bitcoin. This could be a play on it as well. Claims around this accounted for about a fifth of all Mt. Gox claims, roughly about 21% of what they had locked up. So with that being in play, a Bitcoin payment option now could be a dump. I mean, we could see a potential starting to play into this, along with what we're seeing with obviously stablecoins and the issue with Binance, USDC, obviously Paxos and what they're dealing with. But do you think that Bitcoin has made its way to 25 and is going to retrace and hold these patterns, or what is your theory?
Yeah, well, at this point, I'm kind of playing a cautious middle. I'm not a super bull and I'm not a super bear. I've heard these reports, Mt. Gox coming back, what's going to happen with stablecoins. A lot of fear and FUD have been put in the market. And to be fair, there's also been a lot of FOMO put in as well. Yep. I'm not necessarily looking at Mt. Gox situation, though, as being too big of a deal. First of all, anyone who lost money back then, who has been able to just continue to watch Bitcoin move, in case you're wondering, despite the fact that we're towards the bottom, if not already at the bottom of a bear market, Bitcoin continues to move up into the right. And so literally, if anyone got their money back that was stolen in Mt. Gox, they would be up. And so I think there are some kind of fear mongers out there saying, oh, here we go. When Mt. Gox money gets pushed back in, we're going to have a sell-off. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I'm sure some people will do that. But the other thing I'm looking at is watching some of these whale wallets that are accumulating more Bitcoin right now. Whales do not invest at stupid places. These people have been holding Bitcoin for a very long time. They are the ones that really help us influence and know when are we at the bottom of a cycle, when are we at the top. They're investing at bottoms and they're selling at the tops. They're buying right now. So the Mt. Gox, it could come in and be a factor. But to me, if anyone's wondering, what is, in Tim's opinion, the biggest hurdle that we got to watch, it's still going to be inflation, FOMC, and then the newest one, I think that could be a boost to Bitcoin, but a hindrance to the rest of the crypto space, is how far does Gary Gensler and the SEC actually go with their regulation?
Yeah, and I think you look at that. The other signals, if you think about trading and just some of the things that we've watched at over the historical and back to the 4-year cycle, all those kind of things start to play into this. This was an article that was talking about metric prints, the mother of all Bitcoin bullish signs, fourth time ever that this has kind of gone. Further in the article, they break it down a little bit, but the thing he's hitting on, historically it flashed only 3 times in Bitcoin's existence, and it led to these massive rallies of 2015, 19, and 20. And then again today, this was the 4th time the signal was suggesting a raging bull market. So with that, and you think about this, do you like Bitcoin right now? If you go to your chart and you look at the current trading trends of where Bitcoin is moving, we look at sentiment data here, which has been up and to the right slightly, though amplification, which is kind of our actionable sentiment, has been a little bit flat, much like Bitcoin. Where would you say Bitcoin could be looking at in the near future?
Yeah, I'll go and I'll share my screen and we can kind of jump into this. So I'm going to kind of flash back and forth on a couple things with Bitcoin. Ultimately, there's some things happening right here. You're going to see a lot of different zones I have drawn up here. I have been watching and waiting for a breakout above this level here, this red box I have. And if I were to pull this up, you're going to see, or sorry, I don't even need my fixed range volume profile for this one. Sorry, I'm going to pull that up here a little bit later. You're going to see this is where we bottomed out back in May of 2022. So we had that big drop that we kind of then bounced back up and hesitated for a couple of weeks here before the big drop down. That was a former support level. So you always want to look at levels like that and say, all right, could that be hard to get through? Sure enough, here yesterday, that's where we kind of got with our wick. I also would kind of classify this as a double top formation right here. This is another level, and they're not identical. They're not the same, but they're so close. I'm looking at this little range right here, right around above 25.2 up to about 25.4 as the real important range for Bitcoin bulls to conquer. And I think there's a good chance they're going to do it. However, what I'm watching right now, and I got to stay a little bit hesitant, is this at the moment just plays out as a double top. Now, I think that the bulls are mounting some pressure here to push above. And I'm going to show you guys some things that I'm also seeing on the charts. But as we stand right now, you can't get crazy with this and get overly bullish because what we're looking at is a double top. Now, I'm loving the green candle we're seeing today. There's a lot of different reasons why I think we could potentially break above it. The first one that I've been tracking for a while now is the fact that we broke out of a falling wedge pattern a couple of weeks ago, back here all the way back in the middle of January. So I guess that's about a month ago. This prediction, if it were to come to fruition, would take us all the way up to 26,000. Now, that's not the only thing, and you don't ever want to make a trade based off of one situation you're looking at a chart, but there's some other things kind of even influencing that push as well. The other one I was looking at with our community over on the Investing Bros and our Discord we had, I told them we kind of topped out right here, and we started to come to the downside. I said, watch this yellow box I have drawn right here, this yellow zone. These zones correspond to some fixed range volume profile, but this one is significant, and that's because it was the peak back in November before the big drop of the FTX news. Now, some people might be wondering, hey, Tim, why is that important? Why are we looking at the former peak on November? Well, traditionally, and if this continues to play out, we could see this repeat again. Traditionally, in the last 2 bear markets, I want to kind of scroll over here back to 2018. This is what we see happen right here. Don't pay attention to the pandemic. This is obviously what happened in March. That was a black swan event. If that had not happened, look at this range right here that goes back to the last peak before the bottom actually broke back in December of 2018. Look at after breaking through that level, we came back down and tested and then continued to rally. And then about a year later, came back down, retested it again. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, more than likely, we're rallying straight up into this 2021 bull market that we had. Going back to the previous bear market before that, let me go to the log chart so it gets a little bit cleaner and you guys can see it better. We have something similar, a little different. Rather than only one breakdown above it, we had the last rally before the big break to the bottom. And then we ended up using this zone as resistance for almost a full year, came back down, retested, had a double bottom, and then we broke back up. And after breaking that range, guess what? We came back down immediately, retested it, and then the bull market was off. I'm saying all this because let's go back to what we're looking at right here with this yellow zone. Again, we had that last rally, that last little peak, the breakdown to, again, right now, could we have the bottom in? Let's just pretend it is the bottom. Well, guess what? We broke above it, very quickly came back down, retested that level, and now we're hesitating at other resistance. But if history repeats itself, that should actually give us a push, potentially maybe even up back towards $40,000 levels at the bottoms that we had, maybe 33 to 40 down that we had bottoms in January of this year, and maybe start retesting some of the highs we had during this little channel we had going on back up towards 48,000. I've seen other analysts trying to predict maybe end of year $48,000 prediction. Not necessarily that we're ending the year at 48,000, but before December 31st we hit 48. That's a little bullish for me. I'm more in the camp of 33 to maybe up to 40,000, but we'll have to see about that. There is something though I will say I'm a little hesitant about it, and I told you guys, double top right here. You got to keep your eyes when you're looking at, I guess I pulled it down. I got to pull back up chart prime, and I got to go to different, that's what it was. It wants me to go to a different screen here. Let this load for just a second. Chart prime is one of my, it's a newer find for me and a great indicator. I've loved it very, very much, but I got to, there we go, pulling it back up. Here on the daily chart, we are sitting at two different levels that I'm not necessarily loving. And if we can break above them, it would be great. I would really love to see it. But there's some hesitancy I have. And that's because if you're looking right here, this is a premium level. These traditionally mark some tops that you can expect in trading ranges. Not only are we hitting it right there, we're also getting to the top level, this gold band. Now, traditionally, you're seeing lots of colors in these trading ranges. We definitely can get above them and operate above them. But price does like to operate below this gold band. And you can see while it goes a little bit above it, this golden band, this upper golden band, has served as resistance now for a very long time. We also have constriction coming in our reversal zones, which could be a good thing. It also could be a bad thing. Traditionally, when you get constriction, Bollinger Bands, reversal zones, anything you're using, a breakout is imminent, and there's a case for it to be to the upside, but there's also cases to be the downside. The last thing I want to show about Bitcoin, and I'll throw it back over to you, Paul, is to keep your eyes on this one thing. This is when I told my audience that I wasn't expecting us to drop to it just yet. The only thing that was hesitant in my mind was this CME gap that we have that came back here in late January, all the way down to 19,500, and it goes all the way up to about 20,000. Let's call it 800 right here. While we didn't necessarily serve it right now, there is still a very real chance we could fill some of these other gaps that we have up here towards 28, maybe even get up to that 35 that I was talking about, and still later this year come back down and fill this gap. The good sign is, though, this would be obviously a great place for people to buy back in. It would still be a higher low, which is part of a bull market, setting higher highs and higher lows. But if people are wondering, Tim, even if we're in a bull market, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is we come back down, fill this gap. Clearly, Bitcoin wasn't ready to do it just yet, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen down the road, maybe even later Q3, early Q4 before the real rally begins, late Q4, early Q1 of 2024.
Yeah. So that lines up with a lot of what we've been talking about here on the show in terms of just some of the macro pressures that obviously we're going to be dealing with throughout the rest of the year. Now, Tim, explain the CME futures side of it versus traditional Bitcoin trading, why those are important, because I think that was a good chart that you were showing right there.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just where I think a lot more traditional traders are investing here. This is a future, so they get to, similar to what people do in stock market, trading futures and doing stuff. It operates like the stock market. Just in case people didn't know this, I'm sure most listeners know, Bitcoin trades 24/7. So you're not going to get a lot of gaps on traditional charts. But these future charts, absolutely, because things can change. They actually have moments where they're closed down. In case you guys didn't know, there's a difference. Here, I'll show my screen once again, and you guys can kind of see this. There's a difference between the candles we're even seeing here. It's slight. But there is, gotta take that down so people can see it more clearly. There definitely is a difference in what the candles look like when you're looking at traditional Bitcoin chart and you're looking at the CME future. So these are just things that we're kind of tracking. This is what maybe more traditional investors are utilizing. I think there's a lot of people trading futures, and it's one of the biggest things that helps move Bitcoin over bigger and bigger steps. I don't know if that was the best explanation, but I think it's the simple explanation so people can understand that a little bit.
No, I think that's a good one. And you're right. There are varieties of trading out there. A lot of people just, I don't know. Our show, I'd love to know from you guys, do you guys mostly work on whether you're using leverage or you're going into futures, or are you doing spot trades and swing trades? I mean, because those are kind of the strategies that I think a lot of our audience has. Make sure and smash the like button today. If you do like us to do these kind of shows where we get a chance to chart these things out. Before we leave Bitcoin, I wanted to play a quick clip here from the infamous Charlie Munger. Let me play this for you guys.
Good, it's crazy. It'll do nothing but harm. It's antisocial to allow it. And the guy who made the correct decision on this is the Chinese leader. The Chinese leader took one look at crypto shit and he says, not in my China. And boom, there isn't any crypto shit in China. He's right and we're wrong.
All right, so I'm going to leave it there, and I don't want to pick on Charlie Munger, but again, these are the kind of things that we are facing with mainstream media. I talk about this on the show a lot, guys, is that we do a lot of media analysis, and they're typically, we've been in the media business for a long time. We're independent media. We don't have an agenda per se. And one of the things that I find on major networks is that this usually lines up with major agendas. And of course, we'll get into it. You guys, of course, seen everything from Squawk Box to Munger and things of that nature that really give a lot of these kind of, death blows, or try to get to death blows. But I think at the end of the day, most of the time, investors that are probably watching our show, and even new people that are coming on here for the first time, the reason you're coming here is because you're starting to wake up to the reality. And the reality is digital assets are really going to be a big part of the future of where you, myself, and others are going to be able to really kind of unchain yourself from the fiat system. Now, let's get into Ethereum. The merge, not a big push. I think actually a lot of people were looking at the merge on ETH and it not really moving the token and not really having a huge effect on the overall ecosystem, outside of the fact that it did become deflationary, which I think was the biggest win. But the Shanghai upgrade could be a big deal here. This in itself could really be a big part of where the future goes. A couple of things they wanted to hit on in this article. Second largest crypto market by value, did not see much volatility. The merge took place around September 15th, so this is going on quite a few months now. And it may prove inaccurate, and a lot of this is based on institutional liquidity coming into digital assets. And this time it could be different. This is talking about Shanghai. While the merge was kind of a technological shift, but again, a big move that we meaning ETH, has been really going to. The Shanghai is changing the supply and the demand of ETH, both in the short and the long term, and capable of having a big impact on ETH price. With that being the case, because ETH has been a little bit lethargic, not necessarily having the kind of moves that even Bitcoin has had, and definitely not the altcoins. Where do you see Ethereum tracking right now in terms of your charts?
Yeah, before I pull up the chart, what I will say is there's been a lot of people speculating. That article kind of goes into it, how when Shanghai comes, it allows people to unlock their staking. So right now, everyone who's staking ETH, it's locked up. They can't withdraw it. And there's that kind of negative side of this, people saying, oh, when this happens and all the staking of Ethereum gets unlocked, people will just come in and grab all their money and come off. To which there's an opposite side of saying, no, now that it's open and people can know they can come and go with their staking, that actually is the encouragement for people before who didn't want to stake Ethereum. Yeah. They now want it. Well, not only leave it, but now newer people who were hesitant because it was locked are going to say, all right, let me come in and start stake ETHing. Now, again, I said earlier, what's going to be interesting to watch here is what does Gary Gensler and his goons over the SEC, what do they do with staking coins? We just watched what happened with Kraken. We know he likes to go after others. Coinbase has made it very clear. Brian Armstrong's made it clear that he's going to fight them. But what does staking look like in the future? That's the biggest thing that I'm worried about with Ethereum. But as a whole, I'm very bullish on Ethereum. And even this other thing, like unless something happens with Ethereum that people become kind of hesitant about the technology in general, which I don't see happening, I just don't see the Shanghai event leading to a massive sell-off. There's some levels I'm looking at here. To watch this high we had back in August at 2,000 is going to be really important. And there's a little level right here with some volume that might be a little bit of a struggle for bulls to get through. So I'm kind of watching that. You guys can see after we kind of clear, we're sitting in a valley kind of almost right now, or we're back at the top. We peaked out at a little valley. We're kind of making our way down this mountain. This is when you're looking at volume profiles, you look at peaks and valleys as being two of the sticklers. And if you're looking at this right here, that's another valley right there around 1856. And then you kind of have a little bit of more momentum to break up through 1900. And then there's another valley. If we can make it through this little zone right here above 1900, I think it's a really easy path. Let's go back and match that August high. That's what we just did with Bitcoin. I showed you guys here a second ago. This August high, we just double top right there. So the first thing I'm looking at with Ethereum is to kind of surpass that. After that, let me kind of pull back and let's take a more macro look at what is happening with Ethereum when it comes to fixed range. And I want to just see like what we've been doing over the last bull market, see some areas that might be hesitant. So you can see right there also, there's a nice little gap right there. Not only would it be a double top, another gap. Then we got a peak up here at 21, another gap down at 21. The volume's just not, it kind of stays really consistent. So I don't know if you're going to see necessarily an explosion with Ethereum or you could see an explosion, just kind of rips through all this, or you might see it just start to slowly work its way upwards and break through all of this. I can go off my screen now because this isn't a chart thing. It's going to also be really interesting that Ethereum. Oh, There we go. That Ethereum, it's changing with it going from being an inflationary to a deflationary tokenomics. There's a lot of unpredictable natures of it. We also thought, hey, when Ethereum becomes ETH 2.0, will we see some of the side chains? Will we see things like Matic and other scaling solutions start to lay off? And we've actually seen, not only have we seen the charts of Matic and these other scaling solutions climb, we've even heard Vitalik Buterin himself say these are definitely still needed. So you're throwing in a lot of unknowns about Ethereum when it comes to charting. What I do think is I think there's a very real chance that Ethereum in the next bull market, and we're talking about late 2024, early 2025, maybe even mid to late 2025, when we hit another bull market top, I think there's a very realistic chance we're looking somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 for Ethereum because of how amazing the technology is. But I do think this next bull market, I think you're going to see technical analysts try their best to look at the past and say, oh, this is what we're going to do in the future. I don't think it's going to be that simple. There's a lot of different dynamics going on into Ethereum that are going to make it a really, really hard coin to look at its past and say, oh, this is what the future looks like. It's a little bit unknown, but with that, whatever that unknown is, it's bullish.
Yeah, one thing that we've been looking at pretty significantly is this whole situation with Blur and OpenSea. And, just this tweet, Blur did more than 3x the volume on OpenSea in the last 24 hours. This is one of the things that could, if this in fact becomes kind of the new gold standard for NFT utilization, especially around the open operability of NFTs globally. Remember, we're going to do a video on this to kind of give you guys a comparison between what's happening with OpenSea, how it works intricately, and maybe why OpenSea has been suppressing, maybe not intentionally, but for their own gain, suppressing the use case and eventually the price of Ethereum. But if you look at just the volume right here, Blur, literally the token just went on to Coinbase this week. We've had so many people asking about it in our Substack. If you guys are not part of that, make sure and jump into it. It's just pbn3.substack. We've done a couple of breakdowns on it over the last week. We did one last week with Kyle and myself, and you look at this and the growth here, already a 3x in terms of US volume. The amount of traders, look at this, 12,000. I mean, it's already opening up in just a very short period of time. And then if you look at just some of the bidding pools now reaching all-time highs, 84 million total value, about 1.5x of that of Aptos, which is big. This is a huge win for Blur, and it's very short. This is very short early, and I think the scenario that's going to play out with this is very positive and bullish for ETH, especially because NFTs I feel like are in that coiling stage of just getting ready to blow. Speaking of NFTs, I want to jump over to Starbucks, and of course Starbucks now already these NFTs on Starbucks, and you guys have heard my discussion about Odyssey, and we did a full breakdown on it. Check the video, just search Starbucks, you'll find my video on it. I'm not necessarily a big fan of what they did in actually the rollout, but I liked the idea, the strategy. Obviously, Polygon is a big part of this. Tim, when you look at the Polygon chart and you think about just these deployments that have started to occur, and of course, Polygon, we've talked about here on this channel quite a bit, recently just dumped my entire Polygon bag. Mainly just to take profits, So I hate it when I have to take profits. It's just it's just the nature of the beast. But where do you see Polygon right now?
Yeah, good question. I mean, and Polygon's been one of those ones, very fun to watch. It's in my portfolio. I don't necessarily go crazy with diversifying until bottom of the bear markets, but Matic was one of the ones I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. You guys can see almost like unexplainable pumps. I think this was the Disney one. I think we had a massive run up here during Disney. This one probably was the one where they partnered with Coca-Cola. And then, just the amount of adoption they've had here recently. Matic, it's another one of those coins that it's going to be hard to predict, but I think it's to the upside. If I was going to do some technical analysis on it, and what I'm seeing right here, there is a little bit of a trend right now going on that would allow us, if we keep pushing here, maybe we're getting up all the way here to 160, 163, maybe even pushing up towards 170. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 touches now of this red line. It doesn't mean it absolutely has to. We also can take a look at some other things happening here when it comes to fixed range volume profile. But even looking over, it was really important right here. This last breakout, last time we peaked, we were peaking that former support that we had back here in earlier in 2022 after we started this bear market. But now we're breaking through that, and so it's going to be interesting to watch. We're kind of peaking where we were hit a high back in April 2022. Let's even watch as we get up maybe in above 175 back to the peaks we had in March. That started that little bear market there. Pulling up our fixed range volume profile here, and I'm going to pull up Charts Prime as well because I want to see what it says. I believe it's going to probably tell us we're overextended, but let's just see what we got going on. We're sitting right now at a peak of the volume. The next little level we're looking at, 156 is our valley, and then we get another peak around that 163. So I'm going to keep my eyes on those regions. If we keep moving bullish, which I think we could, especially with the rest of the crypto market, I think there's still a push to the upside. Watch 155 to 162, 63. Be a very interesting spot. Let's pull up our Chart Prime, though. See what it's saying. It's going to take, that loaded way faster than I thought it was. Usually it takes way longer than that, but that's good. We're sitting, kind of what I'm talking about with Bitcoin, we're sitting at a premium level. So this at the moment is looking kind of bearish, but let's see what happens there. We've been in this same trading zone, like meaning look at these restrictive ranges all the way since back in May of 2022. So let's go down the 4-hourly chart and see what it's saying here as far as what we got with Chart Prime. All right, so we just started a new one here, still sitting at premium. I'm waiting for my reversal zones to kind of pop up here and see what it's telling us. It's still loading right there. Come on now. Either way, it's looking overextended. So anyone who took profits right now, you by no means would be dumb. But there's still that outside chance we're heading up to these red lines up towards 160. So I would honestly, without giving financial advice, continue to do your own research. Think for yourself. But it's not even a bad idea if you're entered into a long right now to maybe take a little bit of profit. I'm not going to say what percentage you should take, whether it's 25%, 50%, and then get some, let's keep going money and wait for those 160s and take it there. Of course, as Matic, honestly, the best strategy would just be, hey, I know this is going up and to the right, so I'm not even going to take profit. I'm just going to let it ride. I'm going to take the valleys. I'm going to take the mountains, and then we'll talk about it late 2025 if I want to take all my profit out of it. So, yeah.
Well, and that's something, too. I think if you're just looking at swing trades or you're doing some in and outs in the market, those are fine because we're most likely going to see some retracement with a lot of these assets as we continue to see macro. Back to your point, if you look at this, I mean, just since February 14th, if it hits the 160 mark as you're anticipating, that would still be a 34% rise on a very short period of trading on Matic. And again, back to your point, they have been just a PR engine. Now, recently, I think the scenario has not had any major releases, but it's the accumulative effect of what Matic has done over the year in terms of just a lot of these partnerships, for sure. And back to your point, the deal with Disney, obviously going into the Y Combinator of sort at Disney, that I think is going to start to pay dividends because Disney is in the midst of really doing some strategic things. Matic most likely will be one of the big winners there for sure. Absolutely. All right, let's get into Arweave a little bit. Remember, guys, we've talked about Arweave quite a bit, and it's one of those that we've put on our portfolio this year. And there's a handful of these metaverse or more risky tokens like an Arweave, a Render, both of which have done very well for us. But if you look at this right now, there's been some pretty big news. Now you can get your identity through Arweave. All this now, you just pay once, you own it forever, kind of like an unstoppable concept around Arweave. But my point being with Arweave, and this is something I talk about often, is that Arweave I think their technology is now, because it is a data storage tool for Web3. We're seeing a lot of adoption, and I think the model that we're going to see with Arweave is continued adoption, where Render is still a little bit ways out because we haven't really met our stride yet of where and what the use case will be for Render. But when you look at Arweave, Tim, do you trade Arweave, first of all? Or is this one that you have watched or looked at?
No, our community will talk about it. So I will from time to time take a look at the charts, but personally I do not trade Arweave. I've never invested in it, never bought a single amount of it, but our community will talk about it, so I'm very aware of what Arweave is.
Yeah, and if you're if you're in the move on Arweave, a lot of the charts that we've been looking at. Let me jump over to ours real quick because this is one that we've had rolling, and this one right here was a zone that we were looking at in terms of an entry, which we did. If you got in literally right there on the 13th, right there is your gain of 31%. It did have some volatility shaking out some, I think, but again, back up again over 13. which was kind of the window that we were looking at. We did a quick trade and exited on Arweave at 13. Again, taking profits, not a bad thing to do. It's something we do all the time. A lot of times I will sell an asset much earlier than I should, just because I'm much more conservative in terms of that, for sure. But I do like their strategy, and I think they are gonna again be one of those tokens that really kind of performs long term. We'll get into, this was just some stuff from Rec Capital. Arweave, another altcoin in my altcoin watch list, rallied 13%, breaking from its green bull flag. And weekly close. So a lot of traders are starting to move into Arweave. So this is one we're definitely looking at. The other one that I put in our bag this last 10 days, last week, is Solana. And now Solana, of course, is making a little bit of a move. You and I got a chance to kind of break down Solana. I know you're not a big lover of it, but when you look at Solana by itself, is there anything you're watching right now?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually haven't done Solana TA here in a while, but the thing is, it's not dead, and whether it ever dies or whether it gets back to prominence, I will say I'm not necessarily even a Solana expert. There's details about Solana that I don't love. So for all we know, Solana is going to be a great project. It's going to make people a lot of money. I'm just not a lover of what they do. However, let me show my chart real quickly. Something I will say about Solana, after this nice little run, bounce back up after a disastrous fall from the FTX news, watch as we've hesitated right here, right around this big drop zone right here back in June of 2022, right there on 25, almost $26.
Yeah, toggle your screen.
Was that not there?
Yep.
Oh, look at that. Didn't get it. There we go. There you go. All right. I'll kind of start this over. Look at how we kind of hesitated back here back in January, right there on the same level that June gave us support on. So this is the reason why charts are really important, because a lot of times these levels come back into play. I think let's kind of take this position from the bullish side. It's going to be very important to break this zone from about 25, and then the other one's going to be up to about 26.82. So in reality, let's talk about 27. Can Solana get back above $27? In which case, that would be a good case for the bulls. As long as we stay below it, I still think there's a decent chance that there's a lot of upside it's got to face, there's a lot of resistance it's got to face. But if we can break $27, I think there's a good chance Solana can get back up, double top to its November top. I think it's back in September. What's August? Yeah, it's very far away from its August top, unlike other cryptos that if they haven't already beaten it or double topped it, they're getting close to it. But there's that case right there. Like if Solana is developing, if they're getting back, I can go off my chart now because I should be done with that. If Solana can get back to developing things, it is one of the most oversold coins right now. So high risk, but high reward for Solana lovers out there. And that's what you see. Like I know a lot of people, if they bought down here at that dip, if they bought $8, even if you haven't taken profit yet, you're sitting in a very nice spot right now on Solana.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that'd be, over 3x for sure. And again, I think a lot of people, when we did the video back in, I think it was late December, early January, it was right before we did our portfolio show, which was January 6th. And that was the point, was $8. And we were questioning, because it was in the middle of a major crash at that time. And it was obviously taking the FTX heat. And that was the big question, was Solana going to go to zero, or not completely zero, obviously, but the idea was that going to be the stop point? And obviously, I think a lot of people were able to get into it. So just remember that Filecoin has been around forever. And when you going back to Arweave, I was looking at just a couple of things on Filecoin. Again, Filecoin master plan, build the world's largest decentralized storage network. I think Arweave is probably going to be the Web3, even though Filecoin is kind of the OG. I don't know. Are you guys doing anything with Filecoin? Let us know in the comments, because this is one that I've never really invested in. We track it, we look at it all the time, but it's not one that we really follow on an ongoing basis. But I'd love to get you guys' feedback on where you think this is going. Look at their allocation. This is kind of interesting right here. Mining and reserve, storage mining allocation over 55%, and then you've got the foundation, very small amount. Team and contributors, very small amount. Protocol. If you like tokenomics, this might be one that would make a lot of sense for what you guys are looking at doing in terms of long-term holding of some of these assets, for sure. All right, Tim, this has been a crazy one. Let's go over to the poll real quick and see what they are saying about this scenario on crypto. All right, so is the crypto rally over? Man. You know, our audience has split on this very closely after the last few days, because we had a lot of people holding at the 25. I mean, it was very kind of the 50-50. So what was the edge on that one, Pitt? Let's go back in and look at that. The edge is calm down. It's slowing slightly. If we hold on a little longer, we might see no to the moon take over. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, Tim, a couple of questions coming in from the audience. We did take a look at Solana. Yeah, it's having a nice little run. What was the move on Solana? This is the 4 hour, so up from 22 to not much, guys, over to 23 right now trading, for sure. And I know, do you follow the dog coins, Doge and Shiba?
No, I mean, I'll take a look at their charts. Obviously, we just had, I went and looked at it the other day when Elon posted his dog. Someone said it's his dog. I don't know if it's his dog or something, but new CEO of Twitter. So I actually was surprised he didn't get more of a pump from that. But no, I'm not necessarily. I think that the Dogecoin will make it, maybe even Shiba Inu, just because of that meme status. I think the world will always want the meme. Anyone who says, I used to be in that boat, like, oh, Dogecoin's going nowhere, it's going to die. I was like, no, Dogecoin's going to stay with us for a while. And it started as a joke, and it may never become anything more than a joke. But guess what? We need jokes, and people like jokes.
And I think the scenario is that the trading environment has really shifted, because millennials and even Zoomers to a certain extent are really starting to get into this. They don't take trading as serious as others. You know, when you're in your 40s or your 50s, you start taking trading a little differently, and you're much more conservative. A lot of times you're really locked in on very slow growth, versus when you're a lot younger, you're willing to take risk because you can. And I totally agree with that. I tell people all the time, young people ask me constantly, hey, I'm 25, you know, I've got this, and I'm not giving advice, but I say, if I was 25 again, I'd be risking a lot more, you know, in a lot of these risk assets, because I know that I've got that time to be able to recover if I miss one. And if you look at some of the, you know, the great investors of our time, that's exactly the kind of, you know, advice they give. So anyway, a couple other things. One thing I want to hit on here, guys, because there was one guy that was mentioning Blur in the comments or in the question mark. Here it is, Mark Gauthier. Am I going to get wrecked using Blur right now? First of all, what I would say about Blur is this is not about the token. We aren't investing in it. What I'm looking at is Blur's impact on the NFT market. And the NFT market will have an impact on not only Blur the token, but more importantly, Ethereum. So be on the watch out for that. Dylan says, if you're taking advice from any at least on technology from someone 90 plus, don't worry about it, because you're doing it wrong. Which I completely understand that.
Yeah, I think reference to Munger. He made some good calls 20 years ago.
Well, in his day, sure, no problem with that. I completely get that. But you're dealing with a completely new investing mindset, and also the companies that we're investing in. I mean, now you're starting to talk about everything from biogene technology, CRISPR-type technology, to what we're seeing in AI, and obviously blockchain, that is pretty much going to suck up, I think, the wind for the next 20 years. And if you think about a lot of the innovation and tech that Munger and Warren Buffett invested in, they were in those days, they were the crypto of their day. Yeah. So I hate for them to say they didn't get rich off of taking risk with advancing technologies versus some of these more staid and steady type investments. Hey, Tim, it's always good having you on the show. Thank you so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man.
You bet. All right, so you guys if you're not over on our Substack, I want you to go over to our Substack, which is just pbn3.substack, and you're going to land right here. You can just drop right in there. You're going to notice a few things. We drop in a lot. Now, it's not every piece of content, but it's usually additional content that we don't put here on the YouTube channel. And additionally, within that, you're going to get our Substack-only podcast that Kyle and I do. So it's really good because we go into a lot more analysis. We'll even give CPI stuff, all that kind of stuff. If you're also part of our CPI membership, you're going to get Power Index analysis. These are videos that break down a lot of our analysis. This is our new tool, and it's enabled us to really kind of reach out and get you guys much more involved in what's happening over here in the Diamond Circle. Thanks again for joining if you're already in there. Of course, if you guys want to reach me, it's out there on Twitter. By the way, I want to say one thing about comments. because this is something I get all the time. And they're trying to cut me off. I know they are. And that is that sometimes, guys, I don't get a chance to respond to all the comments here on YouTube. It's not that we don't listen to you, or we take all of that in. But as you can imagine, there's a bunch of those. And if you're DMing me on Twitter, sometimes I can get to those. But again, when you have 400 DMs, it is difficult. So I try to just cherry pick a few, and I do comment and try to get to others. So just realize we're paying attention. We really do. And we do care about what you guys have to say. That's why we ask for your input. Sometimes we may not thank you for it, so I want to give you thanks for that when you guys give us input on what we should be doing. So again, follow me on Twitter, @Paul Barrett. We'll catch you next time right here on TechBath.